Virgin Mary, Virgin Mary, Virgin Mary.
Oh, hey. Who are you, hey? I'm Carl. You were looking for Virgin Mary, right? Well, Virgin Mary doesn't exist anymore. Yeah, it's a whole long thing, you know. She was a virgin until the birth of Christ, you know, Immaculate Conception and everything. But then, you know, after the birth of Christ, she and Joseph... Anyways, no, she does not go by that anymore. She actually goes by... Mary's taken. One night she got drunk, actually, and she thought it was hilarious that she would go by the name of Bloody Mary, actually. Yeah, and oh, one more thing. She does not like to be seen. She has this whole thing now. She doesn't like what she looks like. So you have to do this in the dark, and then you have to say her name 3 times. Make sure that she hears you, because she might be doing something. So you have to say it 3 times. She'll come by, and she'll take your soul. Have fun now. All right. Here goes nothing. Here's the review. What's up, and welcome back to Interpreting the Stars, where today I'll be talking about an upcoming horror film starring Jeffrey Dean Morgan. It's The Unholy. The Unholy revolves around disgraced journalist Fenn, played by Jeffrey Dean Morgan, who is willing to fabricate his stories to gain fame. When he comes across a young woman claiming to have been visited by the Virgin Mary herself and now has the incredible ability to perform miracles, this journalist may possibly have a real story worth writing about without the need for fabrication, especially when he learns that this young woman started out deaf and mute, but can now speak and hear. But was she healed by the actual Virgin Mary, or was there something more sinister at play? I want to first give a big shout out to Sony Pictures for sending me a screener to see this film a little bit early in order to let y'all know what I thought about it and if I think it's worth watching it or not. I consider myself to be a major horror fan, and I know that horror is just this big subjective genre, just like comedy. Whether it scared me or not doesn't necessarily mean the same will be true for you, so keep that in mind. I also consider myself to be a big fan of Jeffrey Dean Morgan in general, and I think this film was definitely right up his alley, especially because he played the dad in Supernatural. And you know what? It wouldn't take that much for Sam or Dean to show up in this film too, given the subject matter, so that's pretty cool. Now, I saw the trailer for this movie for the first time a couple of weeks back, and they immediately piqued my interest, so I was definitely happy to see it as soon as I could. And I will definitely say that there are things that I enjoyed, like the appearance of the creature itself, which is essentially a false prophet situation. So you're talking about this satanic thing that's feeding off of the desperation of those with faith, right? I mean, you see it all the time with faith healer films and TV shows where the faith healer is a sham and they're feeding off of those hopeless individuals, but instead of feeding off of their money through a con, which is what you normally see, this is a supernatural horror film where the con is a demonic force feeding off the souls of the hopeless. Same kind of deal, just with a twist. So that's kind of interesting. I like the premise here, and the performances from everybody, you know, it was decent. Nothing was groundbreaking or super memorable at the end of the day, but they weren't horrible either. In fact, that's one of the worst things that I have to say about this film as a whole, was just that a majority of it was just neither here or there for me. Nothing was great, nothing was horrible, which means I'm bringing back my least favorite adjective to say about films, and I'm going to call The Unholy cinematically monotonous. I would probably compare the film to 2018's The Nun from the Conjuring universe, except I would consider this miles better than that, but the same type of thing applies. I mean, you watch it and you kind of know exactly how it'll pan out, and that's through cheap jump scare after cheap jump scare. Now, I don't have as much hate towards these jump scares as others do, but in this case, I feel like it might definitely annoy some folks. And of course, with any typical modern supernatural horror film, you end up with a lot of exposition where the characters try to explain what this thing is, what it wants, and the more that they do that, the more unoriginal the film starts to feel, as the intent behind the creature is pretty standard stuff that we've heard before. That being said, in the realm of horror fans, none of this will really matter at the end of the day, because horror is all about entertainment. It's all about having a fun time of watching a movie. I may not have had as much fun as I wanted to have, but that's not going to be true for everybody. So take these scores with a grain of salt. But from an unbiased technical viewpoint, I thought this film was rather standard. Not all of the visuals impressed me, especially when it came down to CGI, but some of the practical effects with the creature were pretty cool. Other than that, I didn't outright notice anything from a technical vantage point that stood out to me as good or bad. Everything else was pretty much right down the line, so this score is 56%. My bias score pretty much reflects the same idea. That I liked seeing Jeffrey Dean Morgan in there, I thought the premise was somewhat promising, and the look of the creature was fun, but mostly everything else was just fine. I wouldn't necessarily feel like rewatching it right away. I wouldn't necessarily feel like recommending it to others. I don't really care for owning it, none of that. So this score again is practically right down the middle at 56%, which means, you guessed it, when you combine the scores together, our average is 56%, or a very, very low D score. I think the movie passes, but only by flying by the seat of safe decisions. The Unholy took very little risks and never really tried to be anything super original or different, but maybe that's just me. Guys, have you seen The Unholy? And if you have, I want to hear your thoughts on it in the comment section down below. And as for YouTube, you guys know what to do. Hit that like, subscribe button, and bell to be notified when I come out with my next review. And until then, peace out.
Dave examines movies we just watch for fun. Davey is the expert. He is the #1 critic that I go to when I need a movie pick. Thanks for joining up with us.